Chapter 5, 10:15 p.m. Heading towards the south side. Oscar dodged a speeding horse wagon and leaped over a steaming pile of manure. He hopped up onto the wooden sidewalk and wove his way through the crowd. His eyes glued to the yellow-capped bobbin in front of him. The girl didn't look like much of a criminal, with her stick legs and flapping braids. But wasn't that innocent look part of her act? Papa always said that Eolus was a charmer. He'll dazzle you with his smile and shoot you dead, Papa would say. Plus, Papa explained, Eolus treated the guys in his gang like brothers. He made sure they ate and drank like kings. Oscar figured the girl was heading for the gang's hideout. His best bet was to secretly follow her there. Oscar stayed hidden as he followed her through the busy streets. They crossed behind a tavern and then cut through a snaking alley. They finally came out onto a dark street of small houses and shacks. The girl beelined for a sagging little house set back from the street. Oscar ducked behind a barrel and waited as she used a key to open the front door. Bruno, she called out as she went inside. I'm back. Bruno. Must be one of the thugs, Oscar thought. He saw a piece of jagged wood lying on the ground. He grabbed it. It would make a decent weapon, just in case. He crept up to the house, crouching low so none of the criminals would spot him out the window. He wondered what he should do. Barge in? Demand his suitcases? Suddenly, his knees started to shake. Sweat oozed down his neck. What was he doing? He needed to get out of here. But then he thought of Papa facing the gun barrel of Eolus Max Kadar. No, Oscar thought. He wasn't going to run scared from a bunch of street thugs. He was going to get Papa's badge back. He curled his fingers around his weapon as he rose up, ready for a fight. Oscar peered through the window. He spotted the little thief. His mouth dropped open in shock. No, he thought. It can't be. He imagined her sitting there with Otis, Weber, and the other boys, rummaging through piles of loot. He got it wrong. There were no thugs, and no sign of his suitcases. The little girl sat in the little wooden chair. On her lap was not a pile of stolen money and jewels, but a smiling little boy with a mop of dark curls. Oscar guessed he was maybe 3 years old. The voices floated through the open window. Sorry, I had to leave you alone again, she said. I very brave, Jenny. The boy said, puffing out his chest. His little croaking voice made Oscar think of the baby frogs he used to catch behind his house. Next time I help. No, the girl said. It's no fun what I do, and you need to stay here and guard our house. The boy puffed out his chest proudly. I got. And guess what? I have enough money to get us some nice fresh milk tomorrow. And a cookie? The boy asked hopefully. We'll see, she said, taking off her yellow cap. She suddenly looked older than Oscar had first thought. Maybe 9 or 10. The boy reached up and tenderly smoothed one of the girl's crooked braids. I love cookies, Jenny, the boy whispered. I know you do, Booney, Jenny said. She smiled, but it was a weary kind of smile, tinged with sadness. It reminded Oscar of Mama's smile, how she looked in the months before Mr. Morrow appeared. Oscar swallowed hard as he stepped away from the window. Those kids were on their own. Oscar felt it in his bones. He remembered what the policeman said. Always would preyed on the most helpless orphans. Oscar dropped his stupid weapon and headed slowly towards the road. What a dope he was, pretending like he was Papa, chasing a killer outlaw through Chicago. Instead, he found 2 little sad kids, and now all he could think of was Mama. How could he left her like that? She must be gone crazy with worry. His mind was jumbled up that he barely noticed when someone landed on top of his head. It felt like a leaf or a big moth. He he absently-minded busted away, and then was startled when a shower of sparks spilled down in front of his face. A few hit his skin, burned his foot like red-hot needles. Oscar looked up and saw a sight so strange he was sure his eyes was playing tricks. It looked as if glowing red snowflakes were falling from the sky. They danced in the gusty wind. Hundreds of hot, burning embers of different sizes and shapes. Before he knew what was happening, they were all around him, attacking it like a swarm of fiery bees. They seared his scalp, burned through the wool of his clothes, scorched his lips. Pain lashed him, and the sickening smell of his burning hair made him gag. And suddenly, whoosh! Flames leaped up in front of Oscar's face. The sparks had ignited his clothes. Oscar was on fire! Chapter 6. Oscar threw himself to the ground and rolled in the dirt, frantically beating the flames that were crawling up his arms and reaching out to grab his face. He rolled and pounded until finally the burning stopped. He lay there, coughing and spitting out the ashes that coated his tongue. His heart hammered with fear, but he couldn't just lie there. The sparks were still everywhere. He had to find somewhere to hide. Gritting his teeth in pain, he managed to crawl back to an old chicken coop behind the kids' house. The woods was mostly rotted away, but the roof was just wide enough to protect Oscar. He sat, hugging his knees to his chest, swatting away the sparks that came too close. He breathed deep, trying to slow his hammering heart. He touched his forehead, gently rubbing his fingertips over the blistered skin. His scalp was badly stinged, and there were burns up and down his body. He barely felt the throbbing pain. His attention was focused on the sky. That glow Mama had noticed earlier was brighter now. It looked as though a giant hand had painted the sky bright orange. The fire has gotten bigger, much bigger. That's where the sparks and embers were coming from. The powerful wind was scattering them like burning dandelion seeds. The same thing had happened the night of the forest fire in Newcastle. Sparks and hunks of burning wood and bark had flown for miles, setting off new fires wherever they landed. What did I tell you about the track? Mama and Papa and Oscar had almost lost their barn. Some people had lost everything. Barns, houses, and even fields. 10 people were killed. One family survived by diving into the pond and dunking under the water while the flames roared over them. Oscar took a breath, trying to loosen the choking fear that gripped his throat. He thought of what Mr. Morrow had said, that Chicago had one of the best fire departments in America. Maybe that was true, but there was no sign of them here. And once the fire got too big, not even an army of firefighters could put it out. Oscar had learned for himself during the castle fire how a fire could grow and grow, how it could become like a ferocious beast that would devour everything in his path. And what the fire was most hungry for was wood, like the thousands of shacks and stores that lined Chicago's streets, the miles of wooden sidewalks, the warehouses filled with coal and oil that would explode at the slightest spark. Oscar remembered how the forest looked after the fire, and he and Papa had ridden up there to see for it for themselves. Oscar would never forget the sight of it. The fire had turned thousands of trees into twisted black stubs. The ground was a sea of ash. There was not a bird, not an insect to be seen. Oscar tried not to look at the blackened bones that were scattered all around, the skeletons of the creatures that hadn't been able to escape. He and Papa both loved that forest. They go up there with Mama, who loved telling them the names of every last tree and flower. Oscar and Papa had both fought back tears as they stood in the burned ruins, but then Papa had pointed to something on the ground, a tiny green shoot pushing through the ash. It would take a long time, Papa had said, but one day the force will grow back. Oscar shivered as he thought of what a huge fire like that could do to a city like Chicago. Could such an important city burn to the ground? It didn't seem possible, but hadn't Oscar learned that anything was possible? If a blizzard could kill his papa, couldn't a fire destroy an entire city? Oscar looked up as though answers might be printed on the own sky, but instead his eyes found the two small and terrified faces peering down at him from the upstairs window of the house. Jenny and Bruno. Jenny and Bruno. The sight of them, lit up by the glowing sky, jolted him. Right at that second, the wind blew its dragon breath. More sparks and nimbles appeared, and out of nowhere, a large plank of flaming wood came soaring through the air. It was like an enormous flame spear, hurled by an invisible warrior. It was headed right for the house. Boom! The wood smashed through the roof of the house, sending a column of flames high into the air. Oscar opened his mouth, but he was too horrified to even scream.